The first hormone to talk about for the anterior pituitary is the thyroid-stimulating hormone, TSH. So that hormone from the anterior pituitary is a tropic hormone because it targets the thyroid gland, which is an endocrine gland, to produce and release its own hormones, which we'll call thyroid hormone, which is actually more than one hormone, but we'll just call it thyroid hormone for now. And that is released in response to stress and or even low body temperatures. Okay, so TSH, thyroid-stimulating hormone, is one of the tropic hormones of the anterior pituitary, and its target is the thyroid, hence the name, thyroid-stimulating hormone. Another one, Adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH, stimulates the adrenal cortex, hence adrenocortico, to secrete its hormones, and that's right here. And notice tropic is actually part of its name. The adrenocorticotropic hormone stimulating the adrenal cortex, which is acting as a endocrine gland in this case and secreting its hormones, epinephrine and norepinephrine. Where's my cursor? But we'll get to that when we get to that. Right. That's just to show you that the adrenal gland with its cortex region, outer region, sits just above superior to the kidney. Third one, follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH. It's one of the gonadotropins in terms of hormones because it has an effect on the gonads. So it helps regulate gonadal hormone production, part of the reproductive system activities to produce gametes. And we'll revisit this when we do the reproductive system chapter. Luteinizing hormone, LH, is another gonadotropin. Regulates gonadal hormone production, part of the reproductive system functions and activities in relation to producing gametes. So similar in the sense that both FSH and LH are targeting the gametes to produce the gonads to produce gametes. Prolactin has the effect on females, female symbol, for growth of the mammary glands and milk production. In the males, I actually got cut off there for a second. So in the male, there's the male symbol, prolactin has the effect on the testicles in the sense of producing one of the male hormones, testosterone. So prolactin has an effect on both males and females, even though here in our figure, where's our figure number? Well, in this figure from our chapter, it really only mentions the effect on mammary gland tissue. But it has an effect on both males and females. And again, we'll revisit prolactin when we do the reproductive system chapter. Okay? Prolactin effect on mammary gland tissue, prolactin effect on male gonad, the testes, for testosterone production. Number 6, growth hormone, GH. Where is it? Here you go. Effects throughout the body, stimulates somatic cell growth and mitosis by stimulating the liver to produce growth factors, somatomedins. So the production, the amount of hormone secreted is affected by age. So when you're actively growing, as child, teenager, you're producing proportionally more growth hormone than you would as an adult. It's very important for the growth of what's called the epiphyseal plate. Back when we did the skeletal system, we didn't talk too much about bone growth in terms of how your bones grow from child to juvenile to an adult. Your bones get bigger and bigger, and one way that they lengthen is at the epiphyseal line. In a minor, there's actually cartilage tissue, and as that cartilage cells produce more cartilage. Some of it gets converted into bone, and the bones grow in length at both epiphyses, right, distal and proximal. So that growth at the epiphysis, the epiphyseal plate, is prodded along, pushed along by growth hormone. As you reach adult size, the amount of growth hormone that's produced drops, the epiphyseal plate growth slows down, eventually stops, and that cartilaginous tissue at the epiphyseal line gets fully ossified, converted into bone. So during growth, the epiphyseal plate is actively growing, pushed along by growth hormone. Oh, here we go. So here's a relatively short bone, right? The femur. And as you grow and grow and grow, right, the bone gets thicker and heavier and wider, but also, importantly, taller. And if you look at this, this is cartilage, and if the cartilage gets converted into bone, if you remember osteoblasts and osteocytes, that sort of thing. Where's my cursor? Come on, sorry. So as the cartilage gets converted into bone, the superior part of the cartilage line at the epiphyseal plate will produce more cartilage, so that epiphyseal line gets pushed up, and that's on the proximal epiphysis. On the distal epiphysis, it's upside down in the sense that the growth direction is inferior. But anyway, growth of cartilage and bone at the epiphyseal plate growth is pushed along by growth hormone. All right, 7, excuse me, melanocyte-stimulating hormone, MSH. It pushes melanin production by the melanocytes. Remember, in the skin, in the different layers of the skin, in the stratum basale, where the mitotically active cells, those stem cells replace themselves, and the other stem cell gets pushed up into the stratum spinosum. And there's also some melanocytes there that will produce melanin, and based on our genetics, the type and color and amount of melanin that's produced is genetically based. But what's helping push the production of melanin is melanocyte-stimulating hormone, right? Hormone that stimulates what? The melanocytes. So this is a non-tropic hormone because the melanocytes are not endocrine cells or tissue. They are just cells that are producing melanin. So melanin synthesis and distribution throughout the body. And the other previous 6 hormones we covered are tropic hormones, and that means that those hormones have effects on endocrine cells, tissues, or organs in the body. Melanocyte-stimulating hormone is non-tropic because its target melanocytes are non-endocrine cells. Okay. And the activity ceases prior to adulthood. All right. So, little review there of the anterior pituitary, also called the adenohypophysis, and a tiny short little blurb of the effects on their target organs, cells, of the respective anterior pituitary hormones. Okay, 6 tropic and 1 non-tropic hormones produced by the anterior pituitary. Okay, let's move on to the posterior pituitary, which again is an extension of the brain, so it's actually neural tissue or nervous tissue. Hence the other alternate name for the posterior pituitary, the neurohypophysis. Down here. Does not produce hormones. It simply stores the 2 hormones produced by the hypothalamus, oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone, ADH. The stalk, the tissue that connects the pituitary gland to the hypothalamus, is the infundibulum. Pretty fragile piece of tissue. Okay, quickly, the effects of antidiuretic hormone, ADH, produced by the posterior pituitary. It's also called vasopressin. Overall, it reduces urine production, urine volume. So ADH is released when there's a drop in blood pressure. So it signals the kidneys to increase reabsorption of water, removing water from the urine that would be normally urinated out. So it decreases urine production, and by doing so increases blood volume and then helps increase blood pressure. By initially increasing water retention and return of water into the bloodstream by the kidneys. So we'll look at this again when we do the urinary system. And ADH is released in response to increased electrolyte concentrations due to low blood volume and or low blood pressure. And then the other effects of ADH is to cause vasoconstriction, which would help increase blood pressure. And that's why the other alternate name for ADH is called vasopressin. Okay? So oxytocin in females, the overall effect is to stimulate uterine contractions during labor, childbirth, and help stimulate milk discharge or milk letdown so that the suckling infant can feed. In males, it is involved in smooth muscle contractions in the reproductive tract, the male reproductive tract during ejaculation. So oxytocin has an effect on both genders, male and female. And that's the female symbol, male symbol. So in both sexes, oxytocin has been shown to increase the emotional bonding affinity between the genders. So sometimes it's referred to as the cuddle hormone, oxytocin. So again, just like prolactin, oxytocin has an effect on both genders, male and female. Okay, let's move into the other tissues and or organs of the endocrine system, the thyroid gland. Inferior to your thyroid cartilage, that's this nice big blue shield here, part of the larynx or voice box. So if you were to touch your Adam's apple, that's that little ridge there. It's called the laryngeal prominence, but that's part of this kind of shield-like cartilage, thyroid cartilage of the larynx. So just below that, there's the soft tissue of the thyroid cartilage, kind of just anterior to that portion of the larynx, voice box, and this portion of the trachea, the windpipe. That would be the heart there. So it does have distinctive right and left lobes, right and left lobes, and the connection between them is referred to as the isthmus. So within the thyroid, if you do a little section and slap it on the slide, the histology, there are very distinctive round oval follicles called thyroid follicles with kind of a clear space inside, and those are called the cavities, okay, filled with colloidal material or a colloid within the follicles. Excuse me. And that's where the thyroid hormone is produced and then secreted. Okay, so the follicular cells, the cells here, notice it looks like simple columnar epithelium, but those cells there that are part of the follicle are called the follicular cells. Good name. Or T thyrocytes. They surround and form the follicles, which are filled with colloid. Okay? The T thyrocytes produce a chemical precursor to thyroid hormone, called thyroglobulin, and that is stored within the follicles, the precursor to thyroid hormone. Then iodine that you get in your diet is added to the thyroglobulin in the colloid within the follicular structures, the thyroid follicles. The addition of iodine to the precursor thyroglobulin forms thyroid hormone, thyroxine, which is also called T4, because each molecule of thyroxine will have 4 iodine